So, if you're thinking about starting a business, or you're still in those early stages where you're trying to figure out a lot of these things, like, is my pricing okay? Or am I even selling the right stuff? Then this video is probably going to be helpful to you. Hopefully. So, my name is Nigel, and I run the digital marketing agency Toon Enterprises, and we specialize in content marketing as well as journey design. We signed our first client about 20 months ago, and then 10 months after that, we officially registered the business. Since then, we've worked with a range of clients, some of them ranging from generating 20 billion a year to others who, if they made 20,000 in a year, then they'd be pretty happy. So I've learned a ton of lessons in that time and made a lot of mistakes. Today, I'm going to be sharing stories from the journey so far, right? And dare I say, this might even serve as reminders for some of you veterans out there who've been in the business game for a minute, right? The whole purpose is, like I said, I want to share my lessons and learnings. That's the reason I do all of this. But what we're going to do is when we tell the stories, I'm also going to highlight the most painful part about the experience, right? What really, for lack of a better term, fucked me up about all of it. And then, of course, there's the piece around, in retrospect, what do I see now that I didn't see then? Which, retrospect is 2020. And then lastly is, how has that impacted the way we operate today? Because that is ultimately the lesson, right? Learning is same environment, new behavior, Alex Amosi. So we're going to do that, but at the same time, I'm going to be trying to multitask because we also do have a shoot today. It's been 2 months since we've recorded and posted content because things have been insane. As we get into the story, we'll unpack that a lot more, but we're going to do a whole lot of stuff. I'm going to catch you on the field, and then that's going to be that. Okay, so our first lesson, or our first story, starts off back when I was still in high school. Probably even before that, but I guess most notably when I was still in high school. Before I was actually in business, and before I realized that I was in business, I started off making music, right? This was my first venture into what I ultimately see as the goal for myself, which is autonomy, just the freedom to do what I want when I want. And when I was at this point in my life, how everything worked was it had to be music or nothing, right? And I was really about the art. I spent a lot of time trying to harness that. Everything I was not good at, I spent a lot of time working on that. And that's the first, I guess, area that taught me how to work hard. Unfortunately, and this is that part that I only see it now when I look back. I used to tell myself that I'm going to work hard on my music, but everything else I don't need to work hard on, right? Because it's a waste of my time, which is valid, right? But unfortunately, it was incorrect in that there were certain aspects of my life which existed, which I needed to maintain and upkeep and do well in order for the next parts of my life to happen, i.e. school. Not for the traditional reason you think of. I needed to do well in school so I could continue to have my parents' support, so that I could continue to live rent-free and pursue the things I really wanted to pursue, right? I didn't do that. The lesson I learned there was hard work translates, because shortly after failing school, even though I was making music, right, consistently and what I'd call more seriously, I still wasn't going anywhere with it, right? So clearly something was off. I didn't see it at the time, but it's just that I didn't understand the business side of it. And I'd heard a lot about, music is both art and business, and in order for you to succeed, you need to make sure you understand the business aspect of it. And how I just thought business was, I will make a bunch of music, people will learn my name, they'll learn my music, they'll love it, and then they'll be willing to pay for tickets to come to shows, and that's the business. That's how I'll make my money, and then I'll be super rich, because then I'll be selling our shows and selling hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of copies. Completely did not understand the fundamentals of business, that in order to get to that scale, you need to scale, right? I didn't even know that word at that point. So that's just how wet behind the ear I was when it came to business. So That was tough, but it eventually helped me learn the lessons I needed to learn, specifically in the video domain. At the time, I realized in order for me to get more attention on my music, I need to meet people where they're at. Visuals were just as big a part, if not even bigger, than the audio aspect of music or the music listening experience. So I started making a ton of videos, and the videos themselves started getting a ton of attention, which ultimately led us to our second lesson, which we'll touch on as soon as we finish what we need to do here, because we do need to move.
I hope when my moment stops, please don't let my name just
Hi, Nat.
please don't let this
Morning, Prabhashni. Hi, Shadi. How are you guys doing?
Hi. Good, how are you?
Well, thank you.
So, we're back. It's been a couple of days. There's been a ton that has happened since then. But this was another, I guess, sales call. They reached out, right? I've did some work for them in the past, and I guess they were looking for another video in a very similar style. Unfortunately, they're trying to get it for free. There's a bunch of other things I need to do, but anyway, enough wasting time. I'm gonna go jump in the shower because I actually haven't showered. I just washed my face so I could jump in this meeting. Like I was saying, effectively, I got to a point, right, where I realized that people loved the videos way more than they love my music. And this is where story 2 kicks in. Because when I started realizing that, I just moved out of home, right? And I got to a point where I realized I needed more money. And in so doing, I started thinking about what are the different ways I can use my music to actually make money. Because it was starting to dawn on me that I didn't understand business, like at all. So I came up with a couple of ideas, which at the time seemed great, but again, there was no business acumen behind it, right? Some of it were things like a beat building series where I effectively got on and I'd show people how I make my beats, and then I'd make a song at the end of it. The whole point was firstly to educate, because at the time I was like watching a whole lot of videos, so they told me that you need to educate people or give them value for them to like want to stay around. So I started the series where I was showing people how I make beats, how I make my music, the stories behind it all. I did that for a while. Not a lot of traction, but I only did like 4 episodes, so I never even really tried. Then after that, we moved on and we started this other series where we were starting to invite artists over into the studio so that they could come. And what I would do then, once again, trying to provide value, is I'd give them a platform where they can then firstly create content, share it with their audience, but at the same time, I get to share with my audience some of the artists I work with, and they get to show their audience my stuff. And that would effectively create this whole symbiotic relationship where we feed each other. So we tried those things, we ran with it for a while, and then the craziest thing happened, in that putting content out there effectively gets your attention. It gets people to start watching your stuff, which is when our very first client actually ended up finding us. I saw a competition that we're having. I decided, I'm already making this music. Why not just put it out there and then get on another platform so more people can see what we're doing? Now, when we actually applied to that platform, the host of it, who ultimately became our client, was like watching all of these entries. And then he reached out and was like, hey man, how do you do what you do? Who does that for you? I'm thinking about doing something similar at the end of this talent show. So I was like, no, I do that. Like, I shoot and I record the videos too. It's just so that I can actually get my music out there. We got on a call later that time, and like he spoke through this idea he had, and then he asked if it was something I was actually able to make possible. We went back and forth. I sent him some ideas, a proposal. At the time, I didn't even know what a proposal was, but I just like looked it up quickly and I was like, okay, cool. I put something together and then I shot it over to him. I don't think it was great, but I think the content had did a good enough job to be like, even though from an admin point of view or from a governance point of view, this dude has no idea what he's doing, the work in itself seems good enough Eventually, we had a couple of conversations, ended up signing the deal, and then we went on to work on this really dope project that set us up in so many different ways. When I look back at it, there was a number of things that obviously I could have done a lot better. Firstly, getting a better understanding of a proposal and structuring your offer. Because at the time, I was just like, hey, what do you need? And we will do it. And that is something that has bit me in the ass multiple times, as you're going to see as we go through these stories. Secondly, when we got to the closing, right, when we were about to close the deal, in our contract, we had to make a little bit of an arrangement where, in addition to the payment, we needed to be able to use the content too as marketing footage. And we kind of justified that by like detailing all of the work that we're going to need to do in order to like bring these projects to life. And then we reduced our price a little bit and say, look, so we're not going to charge you everything we need to charge you in order to deliver what you need. But in that gap, the compensation for that, give us access to the footage so that we can actually market ourselves. So in retrospect, definitely one of the wisest things I did. There's more opportunities to make more money if you've got more material to market yourself, as opposed to trying to get the money right there and there. And it is not necessarily worth as much. So that was good. But the problem was, when we actually got to that conversation, our client was already willing to pay our full amount plus give us access to footage. But I was still in a spot or a place where I wasn't yet confident in selling. I couldn't yet say like our price because we're not cheap. Like again, we are not cheap. I couldn't say our price without like feeling like, oh man, the client's about to run away now. So quickly keep saying more things and like try keep making it juicier and sweeter and all of those things. And eventually I ended up cutting him off when he was like, yeah, okay, let's go. And I was like, but it's fine, we'll do it for even cheaper. Like, you know, we can give you even more of a discount. And obviously humans are humans, and the client was like, cool, because that is capitalism, that is commerce. You say, I've got this is the price. If someone takes it, you have not robbed them as long as whatever you do works. You can charge someone 100,000 Rand for a bottle of water. As long as that person is willing to pay, then that is commerce. That is capitalism. You did not rob them. They were not blind. You didn't lie to them and say this water is gonna like, you're never gonna die if you drink this. As long as you were truthful, accurate in the benefits and what your solution does, then you just did business. I didn't understand that at the time. That's changed a lot recently. I definitely recognize the role of capitalism in our world and fair trade in that I'll give you this, you give me that. Are we good? We're good. Let's go. And a very, very important one is to shut the fuck up. Like seriously, say what you need to say and then calm down. You always want to make sure you hold the position of power because at the end of the day, people came to you for what you do, right? Whether you had to go to them to get them to come to you or they came to you inbound completely. The fact of the matter is, you're the one with the solution to their problems. They're not doing you a favor, but don't get arrogant about that too. That was at that point. And then we started running with that project, right? We started going out, we started shooting, we started doing all of the works. There was a whole new level of professionalism, which was really awesome because the better we got at that, and the more we're out on the field, the more exposure we got. And that leads us to our third story, which was effectively a lesson in humility. The project we were working on was this documentary which had us traveling around parts of South Africa. On our travels, obviously, we'd be on the field, we'd have our cameras out, you know, we'd be out here working, and then we'd bump into people, and these people would ask us, hey, what are you guys doing? We'd talk about it briefly, and you know, people would get excited for it. They'd be like, oh damn, you know, I need something very similar for my business, or I need something very similar for my thing, or whatever the case is. And we just kept hearing this. And at the time I was also consuming a ton of business content, and all of my business heroes were just telling me, charge ridiculous prices, go high, go premium, because the more you charge, the more value you can provide to your customer, which seemed easy enough. But the problem is, one, I had no idea how to sell. Two, I actually had no idea what we were selling at the time. All I knew was we shoot videos, but why? What did those videos do? I couldn't explain any of that at that time because I just didn't understand that sales is not about you as the business. It's not what you can give. It's about what the customer can get. Like, it was all about us, and I fixated heavily on that, which screwed me because I overinflated my own worth and undervalued what the customer actually needed, which was bad. I know that now when I look back, but when I sat there, like it just wasn't the case. We got to a point where like there was this one prospect who walked up to us and we were like at the top of these Santon Towers and he starts speaking to us and he's really interested in working with us. To his own folly and my own downfall, he was like, listen man, I just really need this thing to work for me, right? Even if I need to pay 100,000 Rand, like I just need this to work. Just to show you like how bad I was at the time. I didn't even like really hear his real concerns, the real thing he was trying to solve for. Because the thing is, there's what people say and then there's what people mean, right? And especially a lot of the time, as a service provider, your job and your responsibility is to listen to what people say, but really understand what they mean. Because a lot of times people say, I want more customers, but then you need to go in and unpack. So at the moment, is it just you've got low volume? Is it low quality? Is it the people who do come are just unqualified, or your process just has holes in it where you get people to come, but you don't get people to come to the call, right? Or you get people to come, they get to the call, but for some reason they don't close. So all of those aspects are really important, but you need to go look for that and unpack that as a service provider. I just wasn't doing that. Bro, I heard this guy say 100,000 and I was like, I could buy a lot of stuff with that. I could literally buy a lot of stuff with that. Which is messed up, which is literally messed up, because eventually when I got on a sales call with one of these guys, because he introduced us to his actual operator, right? And he did such a good job of edifying us too. He was like, yo, I met these guys, they seem like brilliant young men. We just need to sort out the details, but I really want us to go through with this. And when his guy was also like kind of not being responsive, this prospect would go and push this guy. So clearly this prospect wanted to work, but eventually we get on a call with this dude and I go on and I blabber for like 10-15 minutes about like how great all our stuff is, and at the end I'm like, yeah, and all of that will cost 100,000. And the guy's like, okay, cool, let me get back to you. And anyone who's been in sales knows let me get back to you is, yeah, no, I'm gone. I didn't know that. I was just like, oh boy, that 100,000 is coming, it's gonna be amazing. And yeah, obviously I don't do that anymore. I listen to the people I talk to. I ask questions, even hard questions, like, are you really sure that what you're missing is videos and not a journey, right? Because a lot of the time people can get people to walk through the door. The problem is they don't know how to hold their hand from the door to the sales till, right? And there's a lot of little steps in between that you need to carefully craft to make sure that they don't turn around and walk away. So we've learned a little more. I'm sure 10 years from now, I'm gonna watch this and be like, oh, my boy didn't know this and that, but like we've learned it now. But that's effectively the hardest part about the lesson in humility, because I spoke to like a lot of people and I say, guys, we've got this massive deal coming up, and like it just fell through. So like it really did humble me, but it also made me go and like upskill myself, because after I bombed on that, I went and I was like, how can I be better? How can I avoid that from happening again? I started listening to sales training videos. I watched more business videos, right? I just watched a ton of content around just how to be a better person in business. And again, that's another recurring theme. Just be better and you build a better business almost by default. Yeah. We'll touch on the fourth lesson that spins from that in a second. However, what I need to do is just start running some tests for our client's shoot tomorrow. We've connected the camera to the laptop, but what's now missing is the ability for us to live stream directly to channels. Anyway, we were just about to get into the fourth story, where effectively we were now in the business, like actually in the business. It felt like we could see the light. Like it literally felt like there was forward momentum. We'd learned some of the hard lessons around selling. We now understood a little bit more about the value that we actually provided to our clients. It started to feel a lot more real, but with that reality also came the understanding that this stuff is hard. Like this stuff is actually hard. I feel like today would also just be a reiteration of that, because today has been super crazy. we'd now shot the documentary, because we shot the documentary in like December time, December, Jan, and then we needed to start getting some of the pieces out. Already at that point, editing like these episodes was some of the most taxing work I'd done in a very long time, because at the same time I had to balance my day job, and we would be pushing to get these episodes out but with like very little capacity. But because I wanted to make sure I was providing as much value as possible and I was actually being a great business, even though I was the only editor at that time, so it just was hell on earth. And it was when I first started like waking up at like 3 or 4 a.m. because I'd have to like push my edits as much as I could before my day job started. Then I'd have to go to my day job, do what I had to do there, and then after that go back and start editing. So it was like really crazy for a really long time. And what it taught me was you can be great at anything, but you can't be great at everything, which means if you do want to do really well at something and you want to be the absolute best, then there's going to be a lot of things which are going to like fall short, because you're just not going to give them the time for them to even be average, because you're putting all of your excess capacity, all of your discretionary effort, all that is just going towards this one thing, and in so doing you make that one thing great, right? I started to realize that then, but it still hadn't sunk in completely yet, because I was still making a ton of rookie errors. I'll chat about it, but right now what I need to do is start moving some of these files over. Plus, I've got all of these lights up right now, which I need to actually take down, pack away. It is 10 p.m. right now. We're waking up at 2 because we need to leave the house by about 2:30. And yeah, all of this so we can be at location by like 6 a.m. Anyway, chat to you guys then.
I've been trying to get out of there. I've been trying to get up out my bag. I've been all up in my bag. I've been trying to get this cash. I've been gonna get this fucking bag. I've been all in my bag. I've been all about this cash. Okay, so double O, and now we about to start the show.
Okay, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Nigel Nyathi, CEO and founder of Toon Enterprises, and today this is a full circle moment. The last time I was on a stage similar to this, hosted by the same people, we were actually doing free work, trying to like get our name out there and trying to like make things happen. Well, today we were actually here on a paid job with a team, right? One of the first times I've actually had a team out on the field. Second and third, I'm lying. But this was different, okay? And effectively, we're gonna talk about that entire journey, how we actually got here. And I think it might be helpful for a lot of y'all. Stay tuned. Peace and love.
It is super late right now. I just finished recording some Insta content. The last time I spoke to you guys in real life, it's been like 2, 3, 4 weeks probably. I don't know, since the last time I like recorded this, because life's just getting crazy, right? But it's also funny because I need to be recording this content. I need to be recording way more content. And I'm actually gonna explain that perfectly with story 5. We were finally operating, we were running, we were doing things like officially we were a fully operational business. It just wasn't built sustainably. In the beginning, you need to do things that aren't scalable, because a lot of the things which aren't scalable are generally the things which are super valuable. I knew that the most valuable thing that we had going for us was, one, we had amazing creative. The content in itself was well thought out, well put together. There was a lot of attention to detail because I'd come from this world and I was the main provider of value, which meant I put all of my discretionary effort into making sure that I was providing amazing content for our clients. The thing is, it came at a massive cost in that pretty much I would not sleep, I would not eat, I would just work. also because of the way I tackled it, it never left a lot of time to continue to grow the business. I was running the business, but I wasn't growing the business, which effectively meant any other costs which came up, I had to cover with the money that was coming in from actually running the business. But unfortunately, what tends to happen is once money starts coming in, that stuff gets allocated, right? You know that every single rand or dollar or wherever you come from, all of those units of money effectively get allocated, which means whenever a new expense comes in, unless your cash flow management is good, in that you have more money coming in than you need money going out. If that is not the case, then you will effectively end up in a position that I was in. I am in right now, actually. When you get into a position where your business model is not cash flow positive, then you end up scrambling to like make things happen, to make ends meet. And generally when you start scrambling, you don't think straight and you do things that you normally would not do, or things that you shouldn't do. Maybe you normally would have done them, but now that you're a serious business, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Word to Toon. Listen, I effectively got in that position where I was chasing my tail, and it was horrible because now I was doing jobs which I normally wouldn't do. And here's the worst part. When you take on a job that you normally wouldn't do, but then that job ends up becoming the biggest headache. Like, you look at it and you're like, bro, you're not even real. You know that? Like, you're just like a side thing that I did so that I could like make the real thing happen. And now all of a sudden you're trying to take up the time for like the real thing. It's just madness, right? Like, I got to a point where like now I was like scrambling, running around, looking for things to do in order for me to just make ends meet. And it was really horrible because all that did when I look back is it made me just go further and further from focusing on actually building out the real business vehicle that would ultimately solve a lot of these problems, and I'd stop doing the little jobs. But the problem is the gap between where I was and I am versus where I should be was so massive that if I try to make the jump, I'd probably fall short and die before I even like make it to where we actually need to be in order for this to become sustainable. So it's this whole, unfortunately, this thing about life where then you end up getting stuck between this rock and a hard place, because it's like, if I stop taking on these little things, we die. But if I keep taking on these little things, we never grow, and ultimately we die. So what do I do, right? The decision was made. I was like, I bet we're going to increase our deal flow, right? We're going to make sure that we are working with way more people. But in order for me to work with way more people, I'm going to need to get way more people on the team. So I was like, cool, let's bring more people in. And you know what? We're not even going to interview them. It's so easy. Like, I'm not even going to need to train them. I can just look for my friends who I know are kind of creatives, and I know they kind of want to get into this. Maybe, I don't know, they've expressed some sort of interest. Let's run with it, right? Go. I just threw everyone in. Halfway through it, I changed everyone's roles, and I was like, never mind, guys. I brought y'all in for this reason, but I realized that we don't really need to do that. I need more people that do this. Therefore, y'all are doing this now. Cool, let's go. Dude, horrible, right? No one did anything, or some people did stuff, but like barely. And all my fault, like literally my fault, because one, this was not what they were told initially they were gonna do, Ultimately, when I decided to finally check in with them, which was another issue because like I gave people work, and then I was like, cool, good luck, sort that out, and I will come check in a while. At the time I said I didn't want to micromanage them, but really when I look back in reality, I'm just like, bro, you're just like lazy. You didn't want to spend the time to actually sit and help people grow into what you need them to be. In retrospect, I'm like, well, a great manager would have probably checked in before the date of delivery so that they could actually ensure that all the things that need to be there will be there on the day they need to be there. I was not a great manager. Still not a great manager. I'm learning, but like, it's crazy. We got to this like really messy middle where I could not keep the promise to the client because my promise was this high. And that is a gut-wrenching feeling, because then you are suddenly all the things which you despise and you never wanted to be, because already the industry that I'm in has heavy connotations with just like scammers and a whole lot of lack of delivery, because what we effectively promise is more people to give you more money. And whenever those words are in combination, it's generally like super shaky business. The one thing I learned there was, one, I need to check in with the team a lot more often. Two, I need to give people the grace to grow. And in order for me to actually truly do that, I need to be there to help them to grow. And that's a massive problem because I don't have a ton of time, which means another thing I learned, I need someone between me and the team who can effectively train everyone. However, what that means is I still need to train that person so that they can train all the other people, unless like I get someone who comes with all the instructions preloaded, but then those people are not people I can afford yet, right? So therein lies the dilemma and the problem that as a business owner I have to solve. So, which goes into story 6, the re-up. Coming into 2024, I made this major decision that we're gonna cut it. This ain't gonna work, and I had to have what I thought were tough conversations, but when I look back and knowing what I know now and having gone through what I've gone through, those weren't tough conversations. But effectively, I had to have tough conversations, sit down and be like, listen, what do you think made us get to this point? What I would have loved to hear were people saying, I messed up in this department, right? Like I did not do what I was supposed to do. I didn't go as hard as I could go. And therefore I acknowledge that this is on me. I respect that. I really, really, really do. I scrapped the team and I was like, you know what, we're gonna take this from the ground up again. We are gonna figure out what we need and then we're gonna look for that. That was a massive shift because what it then forced me to do was actually sit down and actually think, what are all of the functions of this business and what are the functions that I can do reasonably and what are the ones that I should just delegate out. Mind you, up until this point when I brought in the team, for the first time, I hated delegation. I hated giving out the work. When I was still making music, I never let anyone else do anything. I never let anyone else make my beats, mix my stuff, shoot my content, edit my content, do all of that. I was doing everything. Therefore, everything took longer and my feedback loops in order for me to get better were just like much longer. And thank God, at this point, I realized that, look, if I want to actually progress, if I want to succeed in this thing, then I need to make sure that I'm actually delegating work so that we can move faster, get results faster, and improve faster. At this point in the business, we're not trying to scale. We are trying to fix the product. We are trying to make sure that our system runs efficiently and that if I make an edit today, and one of my editors makes an edit today, the client shouldn't even see the difference between this is definitely something Nigel made versus this is something probably one of his editors on his team made. I was trying to get big to get better. Now I had to get better to get big. And in order for me to do that, I started creating content, which now starts to bring us a lot closer to where we are today. I ran that 30-day challenge, started building the personal brand, and while I was doing that, I was creating our own content, doing reach out, doing all of these things, and I was making notes in terms of like, these are all of the things that need to happen in order for us to have an actually effectively running business, and which of these things are absolute nightmares for me to do and which ones just don't make sense right now because they are messing with us trying to accomplish all of these other things. So I was like, let's make content, let's show people who we are, let's actually do our best to actually build this brand and make selling a whole lot easier. We got to the point where now we're making content, we're building up this brand, we're getting deal flow finally starting to come in. Yeah, it was pretty insane. We at that point we were just like growing. And then I actually finally realized the business I was in, or rather the business model I was in, because having all of these conversations I started to see that the problem wasn't selling people on, why they need marketing or how marketing can improve their business. All of them knew this. Everyone understands that in order for your business to grow, you need to get more customers, or one of the elements, one of the levers you need to pull in order for your business to grow is just get more customers and charge more and keep them longer, etc., etc., etc. And all of those things can be done with marketing, right? By continuing to have those touch points that re-invite people into your value chain. So I realized, selling marketing, not that hard. What is hard is getting the people to help you fulfill on this stuff, because there's a lot of elements which are labor intensive, and as a singular person, it becomes very difficult to do it all, and to do it all at the scale which I ultimately wanted the company to go towards. When I look back at it, I realize that I have been optimizing for the wrong thing. I've been optimizing for how do I get more customers? When in reality, what I should be thinking about is how do I build the kind of system and the kind of team that when we get more customers, we keep them and we make them happy, which then leads us to our final last story where we are today. The amount of content you make is going to be directly proportional to how big your business can get. And the reason I say that is because I'm speaking to me right now. Quick recap. I pretty much just finished the 30-day challenge of building a personal brand. After that, what I said was I was about to kick off the next part of this journey. And things worked out way better than I thought they could have. It then opened up this new can of worms. Quick nugget, by the way. There's pain in decline when your business is dying. There's pain in stagnation when nothing is changing and you're doing the same thing day in, day out. And there's pain in growth. The choice that we are all presented with is, what pain would you rather go through? Effectively, what happened was, as we're finishing the 30-day challenge, there was a new goal I was setting out on, and that was ultimately to build this community and try to help everyone while I was trying to help myself. I love information, I love knowledge, but what I like even more than that is implementation, actually doing the things which I learn, which is the hard part. One of the things I was ultimately going to do was talk to a bunch of people who are much further ahead than me and share some of the knowledge they share with me with you guys. One of the first people I hit up was South Africa's #1 monetization expert, Toon the Entrepreneur. So I was like, you know what? Let's actually once again do another proof of concept and show that we can reach those people who are hard to reach using content and leveraging social media as well. And the whole reason I was doing that is because no matter what, whenever you give value, you will get value in return. Sometimes you're just gonna get the skill, like the lessons. And while that might not seem valuable in the moment, it is probably one of the most valuable things you can extract from actually giving value, right? So that was the approach. We went out, we did the work. After a little while, we reconnected, we got on a call. I'd shown them a little bit of what we could do. I'd sent them a piece of content. But here's the thing, I hadn't sent them everything I intended to send them, right? But luckily, they still saw enough value in what I sent that it opened up room for the next call, for the next conversation, for the next part of this whole evolution. Hetty reached out, they had this massive project which was just about to happen, and it just so happens that we reached out as they were thinking about extending their media team. We were presented with the opportunity to show what we could do on a much larger platform. That's exactly what's happening right now. So this is probably the biggest project that we've actually been enlisted on so far. So much so that I went from me, my creative director, as well as my partner who helps out with like anything she can help out with, to me, my creative director, my partner who is now effectively the project manager who helps try to keep a whole lot of these pieces from just like flying off sideways because there's a lot going on, 2 other editors and 3 cinematographers that have become effectively part of the team. And it just went like 0 to 100 before I knew it. I got so consumed in that world that I actually stopped creating content. And as soon as I stopped doing that, then while we were still running the business, I wasn't growing it anymore, which introduced a whole new set of problems. One of which is cash flow suddenly became an issue because now I've got all of these people that I need to pay, but there's also new expenses which come with this new project. And then of course there's the skill deficit, which I did not have. I've tried to manage a team before, it didn't go too well. Now I had to do it, and this time the stakes were a lot higher. I've just been trying to learn how to do that, and it has been, I'll admit it's been kicking my ass. I've made a ton of mistakes. One of the things that I'm most grateful for with this current project that we're working on is it has now forced us to raise the bar. It was one of the first times I'd actually ever made something and then someone responded back to me and said, "This ain't good enough. This is not the standard at which I want." And I sat there and I was like, what? And then we went back, we edited it, we did our best. It was humbling because it reminded me that there's still a long way to go. And you need to remain a student and make sure that while you're a student, you're also being a great teacher for those that are working with you, and ultimately you can get them to your point, beyond you, or maybe close enough that there's no discrepancy between your work and their work, which is a whole nother challenge in and of itself. But I am, again, super grateful for everything that's happened so far. We've got our teeth kicked in a lot, and now we're in this new phase. Now we've got more stuff to do, more value to unlock, so that we can ultimately, in the next 5-10 years, become the person that we were truly meant to be and build the kind of business that we can be proud of. So, yeah, that's my story. That's where we're at, and ultimately where we want to go. So I hope this was helpful. I know I just went on about me the whole time, but I hope in a lot of the mistakes I've made, because I've made a ton, that there's some takeaways that you can like leave with and ultimately avoid getting the scars from the pain in which I've gone through, and you can just keep the lesson. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nigel Nyathi, the CEO and founder of Toon Enterprises, and I love what I do, and it loves me back, and I am so grateful to be in the position I'm in, and I would never ask for it any other way, because what we do is we help busy business owners just like you supercharge their businesses and ultimately build the kinds of brands that people keep knocking on your door trying to break down, trying to get a hold of whatever your offer happens to be, because once people know about your business, so they understand your story and they ultimately see what you are trying to get at, and you actually do that, right, then there's no way your business won't grow. Ladies and gentlemen, I am out for real. I'm gonna move these files and then get some well-deserved sleep. Do I really deserve it? Probably not. Who knows? But I did the work.
Even
So,
when things go bad,
peace.
I'm gonna have my ass. Y'all gon' see my dash. Back to back with that. This is more than rap.